After this was released and the book came out and people started teaching it, former colleagues started teaching it, and of course also despite all of the animosity and vitriol and everything else that came out, because look guys, when I got there, when I was recruited into the program by this psychologist who, after giving me those folders, he started a limited read on with me, giving me more folders, asking more questions, more folders, more questions. And he was testing to find out whether or not I was an individual who was potentially capable of being trained or not, right? He was in an assessment role. And I don't even know if Colonel Lackey knew that he was kind of a recruiter, looking around for who might be good for this, but he was. And so I ended up being taken there. And then unbeknownst to Colonel Lackey and Colonel Glass, who was the deputy commander, or anybody else, my boss. And when I go there and I sit down for the interview process, when I sat down, and well, first of all, when you go into the building, say, and I'll give you pictures, Sean, you can put up there, they are these dilapidated World War II barracks buildings, right? I mean, the shingles on the top of them are all cupped up like bologna, on a hot pan, and the paint's peeling off. But there's a giant security door on the front of this thing. And there are security screens on all the windows, but there's a giant security door with a push button lock combo on it. So the door gets knocked on, and this secretary opens it. Name was Jeannie. And we come in, and the first thing I notice when I look around is I see this giant painting of a galaxy on the wall, a painting of the galaxy with, red gaseous clouds and stuff on the whole wall in like a seating area. And the psychologist brings me over and says, have a seat. And then he's going to go talk to the program director, whose name was Fern Gavin. And while that's happening, some of the remote viewers, which again, I didn't know what they were. I didn't even heard the term yet. One of them comes over and gets me. I can't remember which one it was, but takes me around to meet everybody. And, you got Lynn Buchanan, who was there, who's now written his own book about it. He's in his stocking feet, and he's like this, kind of slightly overweight non-commissioned officer, E7, I think, Intel guy, right? Worked in IT. And he introduces himself. He goes back and sits on this, the kneeling chairs, right, for your back as he's working on a computer. I meet another guy who's, there, who I mentioned the galaxy, and he goes, oh yeah, me and another guy painted that. That was Paul Smith, I believe. And I met Gabrielle Pettengale. She was a former Army officer, now Intel officer, now a civilian. And then I end up going to the other room. They take me into the back room. It was Ed Dames was leading me around. And Ed Dames brought me around to the back room. And in the back room, this is where the smokers existed. So there was like this cloud that went, good 36 inches down from the ceiling of smoke. And you go in there because Mel Riley was the first person I met there. And Mel Riley was this guy with kind of these sad, gray eyes, looking back at you, pure white hair like mine now, but thin. And he had behind him like Indian craft stuff, like tomahawks and
the Native American, yeah.
Yeah. He was a huge Native American aficionado. In fact, he had been brought into the powwows and the sacred dances because he was so capable of doing what he did. Plus, his first vision ever that brought him on that trail to get there was as a young man walking through a field in Racine, Wisconsin. And when he walked through the field, he began to smell the smoke of a campfire. He began to hear dogs barking and horses whinnying, and he heard voices. And as he kept walking, just taking that in, not really being frightened, but feeling that's weird. When he got to the other side of the clearing, he said that he turned around and he saw this village, this Indian village with the teepees and all the things. And that became his first connection as a young kid in high school to the indigenous peoples, the First Nation peoples of that area, right? And so they became all of his friends, because if you experience something like that and it happens to you, the only people that really want to hear about stuff like that or can relate to it are First Nation peoples, because it's part of history, right? It's part of their history to believe in those kinds of things or to know those kinds of things exist. And that was really why Mel's connection was there, honestly. But he began to study their craft and became really capable of it. And this first time I meet him, he's got a brain tan deer hide in front of him, and he's reaching down with a needle I can barely see. And he is picking up one single bead at a time out of a tray of beads and taking these tiny, tiny beads and then sewing it into position perfectly, not just sewing it perfectly. And the stuff he was making was just stunning. He told me once that some of his stuff was in Dances with Wolves. So, and I believe like the breastplates and things like that. So that was Mel Riley. When I met him, I instantly liked him. I mean, there was instantly a connection there. When I was introduced to Angela and Robin, both these women were sitting facing each other in their desks, and they had black cloths draped over their gray Army metal desks. And they were flipping tarot cards down in front of them, which to me was like, what are you doing? I mean, I recognized them as something I'd seen in a movie. Of course, I didn't know what tarot cards were, but predicting the future of something is how I looked at it. And they're both doing them. And I thought, that's not something you see every day in a military organization, along with rain tan deer hide beads and guys walk around stocking feet and a big giant galaxy painted on a wall. I end up being brought into Fern Gavin, who sits me down. The doctor leaves and waits outside. And I sit down with Fern and we have an exchange back and forth. He's like, I'm always impressed that there are young officers willing to give everything up to come and be here. And I thought, because I still thought one day I was going to be a general, right?
Right.
I could see this as like passing through. And I go, give everything up? I don't know what you mean by that, give everything up. And he says, well, people come here and they kind of disconnect from the rest of their life. They disconnect from the rest of their career because what you're going to do here is going to change you. Your life is never going to be the same if you come here to do this. Do what? Do what exactly? And that's when he leans back and puts his hands like this and he goes, well, what we do here, young man, is we train individuals to be capable of transcending space and time, right? To view persons, places, or things, remote in space and time. I'm like, I felt like the cushions fell out of the seat, my ass hit the floor. I mean, I really, it kind of shocked me to hear that for the first time. I think images of like the temple in the wilderness, where the inner sanctum, the holy of holies, where the high priest would of the Israelites would have ropes tied around their ankles as they stepped through into the inner sanctum, because there was supposed to be a portal there, which was an interpretation of what the actual Ark of the Covenant was for, not just transporting tablets, but a generator that spun up a portal, and the high priest would walk into the portal, and if the portal where he was allegedly communing with God, and if the portal began to close, the directions to the assistants was pull my ass back before the portal closed so I don't get stuck on the other side, which seems incongruent, but that was part of the story. That actually did happen. They tied ropes on their ankles before they would go into the inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies. But I don't know why that came to my head. I just know that I was aware of that and how it was. And so I thought, God, I had read all of these files, and then I'm now being told that what this is and what this place does. Yeah, I mean, just hearing that kind of shakes one's, I don't know, sense of reality to a certain extent, right? I mean, you're even just hearing that and knowing that this is a classified organization, it really does exist, and they do that here. And so the conversation was short. It ended. We got back in our Chrysler K car and drove all the way back.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification buttons. Additionally, if you have any feedback, please put something in the comments below. And lastly, if you want to watch the full episode of this clip, you can find it above. Thanks again for watching.